Welcome to Storycraft Portal, where every tale hides a mystery, an emotion, and a journey that grips your soul. Today's story takes us back 40 years to a quiet town in Utah, where a teenage girl vanished without a trace. Her murder became a cold case, buried in silence, unanswered questions, and a family's lifelong grief. But just when hope seemed lost, science spoke. A single strand of DNA cracked open the decades-old darkness, revealing a killer no one suspected. This isn't just a case solved. This is a story of justice that refused to die, of a voice that echoed through time, and of the chilling truth that finally came to light. It was October 1983, a chilly evening in a small Utah town wrapped in golden autumn leaves and quiet routine. 16-year-old Emily Carter, a bright, artistic soul, kissed her mother goodbye and stepped out for her usual walk to the library. But she never came back. Panic rippled through the community as hours turned into days. Police combed the woods, neighbors held candles, and flyers with Emily's smiling face papered every lamppost. Yet nothing, no footprints, no screams, no witness. Her disappearance swallowed the town in whispers and fear. Rumors spread. Was it someone she knew, or a stranger passing through? Her mother's eyes held unanswered questions that aged her overnight. The case grew cold, frozen in a file no one dared reopen. But 4 decades later, a sealed envelope arrives at the local precinct, containing a single name backed by DNA. Suddenly, the silence around Emily's case begins to crack wide open. Detective Laura Jensen wasn't even born when Emily vanished. But the moment that envelope hit her desk, something shifted. Inside was a decades-old anonymous tip and a newly run DNA match, connected through a genealogy database. The file smelled of dust and heartbreak, but Laura dove in like it was her own sister. She reopened the crime scene photos, flipping past blurred images of Emily's bedroom, drawings pinned to the walls, a half-read journal, records still spinning on the turntable. Laura revisited the Carter house, now silent, hollow. Emily's mother, now frail but fierce, opened the door with the same pain in her eyes. "They forgot her," she said, voice trembling. "Will you?" Laura promised. That night, as Laura read Emily's final journal entry, he said secrets make things beautiful. A chill crawled up her spine. Someone close to Emily had been hiding something, and Laura had just found her first crack. Emily's journal hinted at a mysterious man, older, charming, secretive. "He waits by the orchard," she had written. Laura followed that thread to an abandoned apple orchard outside town. The place was overgrown, yet the silence still felt, watched. Among the rotting trunks, she found a rusted bench, a torn ribbon, and a broken locket buried shallow beneath the soil. On one tree, a faint carving, E+D. This wasn't random, it was personal. She returned to town and began pressing harder. Old classmates remembered Daniel Moore, a handyman who volunteered at the school and vanished weeks after Emily. Back then, he was helpful. Now, his name chilled the room. Records showed he moved states in late '83. But what stunned Laura most was a yearbook photo. Daniel standing just behind Emily, hand barely on her shoulder. She zoomed in and noticed the same broken locket hanging from her neck. Laura pulled Daniel Moore's employment file. Janitor, part-time carpenter, 0 criminal record. But his references were dead ends. She contacted out-of-state departments. One hit came back, a petty theft arrest in Nevada in 1991 under an alias. The mugshot was unmistakable, older, heavier, but those same dark eyes. She ran the new DNA evidence against a preserved sample from Emily's fingernails. Match. It felt like the case should have ended there. But Daniel was already dead, died in 2006 of heart failure. No confiscation, no confrontation, just a hollow name left behind. Emily's mother wept, not out of closure, but for the justice that escaped her. Laura wasn't done. She reopened other unsolved disappearances in the area from the '80s. Then she found it, a girl named Rachel. Same age, same town, vanished 2 months before Emily. Her file was almost identical. Laura realized something chilling. Daniel didn't just disappear, he may have been a serial predator. The more Laura dug, the more the map filled with pins. Girls aged 14 to 17, all gone between 1982 to 1984 within a 100-mile radius. It was no longer a cold case, it was a pattern. Emily had been the center, the clue he didn't bury deep enough. Laura visited Rachel's mother, now bedridden but lucid. When shown Daniel's photo, she whispered, "He used to fix our porch," said Rachel was special. Rachel's case was never connected to Emily's, until now. Laura requested permission to exhume Daniel's remains. Forensics could prove more than one victim. More DNA, more voices buried with him. News of the breakthrough spread. Survivors and families began calling. A storm of long silence pain was rising. Laura stood before the Carter house again, this time not with a question, but with a vow. Emily's voice had reopened a door, and now others were beginning to step through it. The grave was dug quietly, far from cameras, far from headlines. Laura stood by as the coroner lifted Daniel Moore's remains into the forensic van. The soil had held him for nearly 20 years, but might still hold answers. Back at the lab, fragments were found beneath his fingernails, old fibers, partial DNA. One matched Rachel, another was unidentified, a possible third girl. Laura felt the weight grow. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. A predator had lived, worked, and died unnoticed. Meanwhile, families sat by empty bedrooms waiting. Laura reached out to the public, releasing Daniel's photo from the 80s. Tips poured in. One stood out, a woman who swore Daniel once rented her basement. She remembered a locked box he left behind when he vanished. Police found it in storage, rusted but intact. Inside were photos, clippings, and a necklace not Emily's. Another girl's. Another story waiting to be told. Inside the box were 5 Polaroids, each girl frozen in time, smiling uneasily. Some photos were marked with dates, initials. The last one had neither. Laura's hands shook as she flipped through. One face matched a 1983 missing person. Claire Jennings, 15, last seen walking home from a church event. Her file had gathered dust since Reagan was president. Laura met Claire's sister, now 50, who nearly collapsed at the sight of the photo. "We thought she ran away," she whispered, "but she never would have left me." Claire was the third confirmed victim. Laura knew more would follow. With every photo came another thread, another grieving family. But something fell off. The last image was different. The girl was looking directly at the camera, crying. No initials, no date, and a man's shadow, clearly visible behind her. Whoever took that photo didn't just kill. He wanted to be remembered. The man in the photo wasn't Daniel, at least not entirely. Forensics enhanced the shadow. It had a taller frame, wider build. Laura's blood ran cold. Either Daniel wasn't acting alone, or someone else had continued after him. She ran the evidence through databases. No hits, but one detail stood out, a ring on the man's finger engraved with a military insignia. Claire's sister remembered someone who visited their church. A friend of Daniel's called himself Rick. No one had spoken of him in decades. Digging deeper, Laura uncovered a name, Richard Klein. Army vet, quiet, lived 2 blocks from Emily in 1983. No arrests, no traces, gone in 85. Laura was no longer chasing a ghost. She was chasing 2, and one of them might still be alive. As she stared at the crying girl in the photo, she made a silent promise. He will not go to his grave with their names. Richard Klein had changed his name to Eric Dale and moved to Montana in 1986. Married, no children, recently widowed, Laura flew out quietly, armed with a warrant and the weight of decades. He answered the door with tired eyes, unaware of the storm behind her badge. In the interrogation room, he denied everything. But the locket from the box, Claire's, had his partial print inside. Laura laid it in front of him. His lips quivered. Silence stretched. Then, with a broken voice, he said, "I never touched Emily. That was all Dan. But Claire, I tried to stop him." Laura listened as he wept, unraveling years of horror. He confessed to helping dispose of bodies. said there was one more, buried near a lake, forgotten by time. Teams were dispatched. As the earth was broken open again, Laura braced herself. The past wasn't done speaking, and justice had one last name to say. They found her. The remains belonged to Megan Riley, 14, missing since spring 1983. She had never been linked to Daniel or Richard until now. Laura stood over the grave, heart heavy but steady. 5 girls, 5 families. The cold was ending. Emily's mother, holding a copy of the final report, simply whispered, "She can rest now." News spread. Laura was awarded, thanked, praised. But all she wanted was to close the folder. Daniel Moore, deceased. Richard Klein, sentenced to life without parole. But Emily, Rachel, Claire, Megan, they weren't just names. They were stories stolen, years erased. And Laura had helped give them back, piece by fragile piece. She visited Emily's grave one last time, a small rose in hand. The wind was gentle. The town was quiet. But in that silence, justice finally echoed. A case once cold, now closed with truth and with memory.